12th of November, Rabbi Furst, Pirkei Avos.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Lou. How are you today?
Baruch Hashem, doing very well. How about you?
Okay, fine. The let's see. The yard site's what on beginning next week, I think, yeah.
It's I found out that I should go on the date of the burial, not the date of the yard site. So that
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, go ahead. The first year, that's the first year, right?
right. So that is the 21st of Kislev.
Ah, okay. Mhm. All right. So all right. If you have any specific questions, you can let me know. I mean, I think what you're planning to do with the basic course is probably appropriate. That's probably very good.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I was wanting to find out, if there's anything special for the yard site that
Yeah. You probably know about lighting the candle, and that type of sort of thing, giving tzedakah and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. I was told that I should light a candle on each day.
I mean, they do the yard site and the burial.
Right.
Yeah, each one, right? Yeah. Mhm. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay. I guess we can start. Okay. Good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here. Yeshivat Samanach here in Yerushalayim. Okay, Zoom Erev Shabbos Parsha Vayeitze Shana Tavshin Pei Beis. Okay. A few particular points to discuss in the Parsha, but I think in general, when looking at this Parsha, central to our learning in this Parsha, should realize that the Torah is in somewhat of depth, is giving us the insights into two sets of relationships. That's actually maybe three. The set a relationship between Yaakov and Lavan. That's number one, and the relationship between Leah and Rivka, Rachel, sorry, and also between Yaakov and his wives, Rachel and Leah, and the Shifkas. So many different things we can gain insight into different relationships based on what the Torah is revealing to us in the course of the Parsha. That we have the very difficult relationship between Yaakov Avinu and Lavan. Yaakov Avinu is as we know, each time. Good morning, Roy.
Good morning, Rabbi Furst.
How are you today? Okay, so we're just basically trying to give a general preface to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha, probably more than maybe most Parshas, gives you specific insights into the interpersonal relationships. Basically, as I see, there are three basic sets of relationships that the Torah is letting us have a glimpse into. One is between husband and his wife, meaning Yaakov Avinu's interaction with his wives, Rachel and Leah, and the other, the Shifkas. And then they have the relationship between Rachel and Leah herself, right? It's between siblings. And then you have the relationship between Yaakov Avinu and Lavan, which could be in certain way like the person between an employer and an employee. Right? That Yaakov was hired by Lavan, aside being an uncle. Lavan was Yaakov's uncle, correct? That's right.
Right. Brother of
Not
his
the-
mother.
Yeah, because Rivka was the sister of Lavan, and Rivka was the mother of Yaakov. So Lavan was his uncle. So, but more than that, more than that relationship, because perhaps maybe that's what Lavan himself um, um, pointed out, that it had like a very business-like relationship. And for example, if you want to look at the pasuk, I'll show you pasuk. Um, yeah, and by Shlishi, right? You could start with that's in Perek Chav Tes, pasuk Yud Ches. So you can start with that first pasuk, and the real pasuk we want to emphasize is Yud Tes. Go ahead. Who would like to do a little bit reading?
I would.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is 28:18.
28:18, correct.
Vayashkem Yaakov baboker, vayikach es.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 29. 29:18. I'm sorry, Lou.
Yeah, I was thinking this doesn't look right. Okay, 29:18. Okay. V'yehav Yaakov es Rachel. Yaakov loved Rachel. Vayomer vadcha sheva shanim. And he said, I will work 7 years. I will work for you 7 years. Berachel bitcha hakitana. For Rachel, your daughter, your younger daughter.
Right. And just to reinforce the point that we've discussed many times, the first word of the pasuk that Yaakov loved Rachel. And again, the Targum, as I said, I've never found an exception yet. The Targum translates with urachem, right? Yaakov is Rachel. He had mercy. Yaakov had mercy on Rachel. That's just another instance where the Targum always translates the word ava into not the emotion of love, as we have been misled to believe and understand, but rather the compassion and mercy, which is not simply an emotion. It's something which forces you to do something. So here Yaakov said, okay, I'm going to work 7 years for Rachel, the younger daughter. And in response, Lavan said in your test,
Vayomer Lavan, Tov Titi, Osa Loch. Lavan said, it is better that I give her to you, mi titi osa leish acher, than that I give her to another man. Sheva I madi. Live with me.
like dwell. You should so you therefore should dwell with me, and you work the 7 years, and you'll get Rachel as a wife. So this sets the relationship between Yaakov and Lavan. that there was a contract between them, right? So if we're sensitive to the way the Parsha unfolds, so the whole relationship between Lavan and Yaakov, as the Parsha describes, is based on this contract, this agreement that they've had, right? And that's why. Take a look and I'll show you this other pasuk. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, let's start with pasuk in Parsha Lamed in the 30th chapter. Let's start with pasuk Chaf Hey 25, chapter 30, 25th verse.
Vayhi ka'asher yalda Rachel es Yosef. And it was when Rachel gave birth to Yosef, Vayomer Yaakov el Lavan, Yaakov said to Lavan, Shalcheni, send me away, or send me on my way. Vayelcha es Mikomi, and I will go to my place. Ula artzi, and to my land.
Right, let's continue. A few more psukim.
Tana, give me es nashi the es yiladi, give me my wives and my children. Asher avadati oscha bahem vayelecha. That I worked for them. I worked for you. With them, I will go. Ki ata yadata es avodati, because you know my work, asher avadaticha, that I worked for you. Vayomer elav Lavan said to him, Im na matzasi chen be'einecha, if I have found grace in your eyes, ni chashti vayevarcheni Hashem. I have divined that I have been blessed by Hashem. Biglalecha, because of you. Vayomer, he said, that is, Yaakov said back to, he continued speaking.
Right.
Nakva sa secharcha alai, established your wage with me, the et tena, and I will give it. Vayomer alav, Yaakov said it back to him. He said back to him, Ata yadata es asher avadaticha. you know that I have worked for you. Ve'es asher haya miknecha iti. And that your livestock was with me. Or how your livestock was with me. Ki ma'at asher haya lecha lifanai. Because a little was mine. I had a little bit.
No, to you, a little bit to you. Lecha. Lefanai.
There was a little bit to you before me.
Right? You mean really before my coming, meaning Lavan had really, he wasn't doing too well. Right? He wasn't doing too well before Yaakov arrived.
Before I came, you had only a little bit.
Right.
Vayifrotz Lavan. I'm sorry, La Rove, and it has increased to be a multitude, for a multitude. Vayevarecha Hashem oscha leragli, and Hashem has blessed you with my coming.
Right.
Vata
Okay, let's stop here for a minute. So seems a bit formal, the discussions between Yaakov and Lavan, no?
Yeah. If I have found favor in your eyes, that's pretty formal.
Right. And he wants to receive his wages, and then he'll go, and should know that before I came, you had very little, and you did so well now that I've been here. Well, sounds like a little bit like negotiations, no?
Yeah.
So this is maybe the Torah is, I mean, you can think about it as much as you want and come up with some more ideas. But one thing that comes to mind is that the Torah, in describing these somewhat formal discussions between Lavan and Yaakov, meaning that when you're discussing things that are important, a lot of times disputes arise because of people having certain expectations. They have certain expectations, and sometimes they don't even know their own expectations. Sometimes their expectations are really subconscious. They seemingly expect certain things. They take certain things for granted, and then when their expectations are not fulfilled, they're a bit taken aback. They can sometimes even get upset and angry, and they can make accusations, and all on the basis of things which were assumed to be, but they were never really spoken and discussed openly, that a person could say, well, you're right about that. That Chazal have a phrase, they say, Devarim shebelev einu devarim, that the words of the heart are not words. Meaning, when you're dealing with other people, and you're dealing with obligations which are going to be assumed or implied, right? So that's the real difficulty. What we call implied obligations, right? It's very risky to leave these things to, well, obviously he understands what I want. Obviously this is what I meant, right? But if you never really discussed it and spoke it out, so those things remind what we call Devarim Shebelev. Those are words of the heart, and they simply remain as words of the heart, and they don't really, in terms, I'm talking about in terms of Jewish law, in court of Jewish law, they have very little meaning and very little effective obligation. Implied obligations are very difficult to enforce, especially if you're interested in trying to what we call be motzi mechaber of a raya. You have to bring, in order to be motzi, in order to take something which is in the possession of someone right now, to remove it from his possession, you need to have a clear proof that it really belongs to you. Because otherwise we'll say that what a person has in his own possession automatically is understood to be belonging to him, right? So any type of lack of communication when a person is dealing with another person, especially when it's a business type agreement, you can't leave anything, and it doesn't even pay, because it can only make things worse if it's left unspoken. I mean, you might think, well, why do I have to be so formal? Obviously, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to be so picky about things. But the time to be picky about things is at the beginning, before the relationship and before the contract begins. Because once the contract is begun and once the contract is even finished, then it's very difficult to prove what you thought you meant, or where you want to prove what you thought he was supposed to understand. Go ahead and prove that this is what you were supposed to understand. But I didn't understand it that way. And therefore there's no proof that you have to support your claim. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that's the source of disputes. Chaim writes that a person, when he hires somebody, should always make clear what he's expecting him to do and how much the price is going to be. Don't think that, you wait till the end and then you'll see how much he charges. No, because he says once he starts his work and once he gives his final price after the work has been done, then you have a very difficult time negotiating with him for anything less than what he's really asking for. So it's very important whenever you hire a worker, whenever you have somebody to give you some, you want to get an estimate for something, right? So it's important to ask the person before he's coming over, is this going to be a free estimate, or are you going to charge me for the estimate? He says, no, I charge $100 for the estimate. And I said, because if they come in, they look around and give you the thing, and they say, okay, thank you very much, I'll be in touch with you, right? Because you want to get more than one estimate. Pays anytime you're planning to do some kind of work, unless you have a regular worker that you've tried and trusted over many times of years or whatever. You usually want to get several estimates, several different points of view on what you want to do. But you ask them before they come over, is this going to be a free estimate? Sometimes yes. Sometimes they're willing to come over and give you a free estimate. Sometimes they'll tell you no. I says, but if you take me for the job, we'll take off the $100, or for the estimate fee, we'll take that off the job. Right? And sometimes no, it's an estimate fee, an estimate fee, and you pay for the estimate, and you also pay for the job. So it's very important when you're dealing with people, workmen particularly, that what type of a expectation that they have. Because once they've come in, they've given your estimate, they've made the trouble to come over to your house, look things over, they spent their time and their money, their energy to give an estimate. Hopefully wants to get the job, that's right. But again, like I said, some will give you free estimates and some won't. So it's important to know these things beforehand. And it's also important to
It sounds like Yaakov didn't do that, because this negotiation is happening at the end.
right. Well, he said originally, I'm going to work 7 years and I'm going to get your daughter. So that was the basic relationship. now he's saying, now that the Torah doesn't go into details about this, but they in fact did. They in fact did make certain agreements along the way. Torah doesn't go into all these details, because as it says, look at the pasuk over here. Let's see where it is. Look in chapter Lamed Aleph 32, pasuk. Zion, pasuk Zion.
Lamed
Lamed
Aleph, Zion.
Lamed Aleph Zion.
Lamed Aleph Zion.
Va'avichen.
He's right here. Yaakov is talking to Rachel. He's talking to Rachel, saying, getting ready to leave. I don't want to drag you away from here. I want your consent that we're going to leave. And he's going through a little bit of a history of what's been going on with him and Lavan here.
Va'avichen he sel B. Your father cheated me. V'hechelif es maskur T Seres Monim. And he changed my wages 10 times.
Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says in a surprising thing, Rashi and pasuk Zion.
Aseres Monim 10 times. Eich Monim Pachus.
It's ein monim.
Oh, ein monim pachus me Sarah. No less than 10 times.
Right, and this expression monim, Mary, that you recognize running minion. Minion is the same source as this word. Monim is minion, and ein monim less than pachos is ten tester. You don't have a minion less than 10.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's the source of the word minion.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Finish
so
the
he's
Rashi.
complaining that Lavan cheated him.
Yeah, but finish the Rashi. Finish the Rashi.
Monim times Lashon Sechum Klal Ha-Cheshbon Vehain Asirios. It's an expression of the sum, the total calculation,
Right, like the total amount.
and they were in tens. Lim das nu shehachalif tinao me a pit amim. That we learn that he changed conditions 100 times.
Right. So the Torah is not going into details, but they were having negotiations all along, right?
Right, but it was not really something that Yaakov thought was correct. He
Well,
thought
yeah,
that the renegotiation was actually cheating.
that's right. Lovin came up with a new idea. how many years was Yaakov by Laban? He was there 14 years for Leah, for 7 years for Rachel, 7 years for Leah, and another 7 years on his own, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I believe
Yes.
so.
So he was there, say, 21 years. He was there 21 years. And Laban changed the conditions 100 times. So let's
Wasn't
just
it
take,
20? Wasn't it 20 years? 14 and 6?
was it? I'm not sure. I have to check it out. Maybe. I'm not
I
sure.
remember that number, 20.
Could be, maybe. And maybe it was 1 year on the derech. Oh, anyway, that'll make the mathematics easier. So if the agreements changed 100 times in 20 years, right? So that's 50. 5 times. It's 20 times 5 times a year, no?
Yes.
5 times a year. So Laban was changing the agreement every 2 months or so. Laban was changing every two months, and plus Laban was changing the agreement, right?
Right.
Have to have a good lawyer to keep up with it, right?
Yeah.
So the Torah spares us all the details of what was actually going on. And just to show you what Yaakov was up against here, take a look here again. Oh, go back. I just want to emphasize this pasuk again. Go back to Perek Lamed pasuk Chaf Vav 30:26.
Oh, let's see, 26. Oh, yes, I was giving my wives and my children that for whom I worked for you, and I will go, for you know my work that I did for you.
Right. So he says, give me my wives and my children, right?
Right?
So now watch this. So Yaakov he goes finally. And one second. Oh, here we are. It's the pasuk. Look, just to verify, Zeh Esrim Shana. Look in pasuk chapter Lamed Aleph, pasuk Lamed Ches.
Lamed Aleph, Lamed Tes.
Lamed Ches, 38.
Lamed Ches. Zeh Esrim Shana Anochi Imach. This is 20 years that I was with you.
That's just to verify that 20 years, right?
Right, that's the 20 years, yeah.
Right, very good. Now, so here, Yaakov says, I've been working for these 20 years, right? And he goes in, you look at the next few psukim, he goes into all these different justifications of how good he was a worker and everything like that, right? So he gives Lavan this whole speech, right?
Right.
And again, what was Yaakov working all these years for?
His wives and his children.
His wives and his children. So after this whole speech, right? This whole speech that Yaakov is giving to Lavan, what does Lavan answer? Look at pasuk Mem Gimel. In Lamed Aleph Mem Gimel.
Vayan Lavan Vayomer El Yaakov. So Lavan responded and said to Yaakov, Ha banos binosai, the daughters are my daughters. Veha banim banai, and the sons are my sons. Vahatzon tzoni, and the flocks are my flocks. V'chol asher ata ro'eh li hu, and everything that you see, it's mine. V'liv nosai ma eseh la elah hayom, and what can I do to my daughters today? Oh, leave Nahem asher yaladu, or to their children that they have birthed.
Right. So what is Laban's response to Yaakov's speech?
He says, no, nothing doing. Everything is mine. And I can't do anything to you because it's all my stuff.
So, and what did Laban think was happening in the last 20 years?
He thought that Yaakov was a slacker.
I guess.
I don't know. He's pretty hard to fathom.
Oh, you're right. Sometimes again, don't forget, Laban earned his title for all eternity. Laban Haramai, right? The trickster, the shyster.
Right.
So, and then what's the next? And then after all that, what is the Laban's good idea to come up with? In Pasuk Mem Daled.
Okay. V'ata lecha nichritza beris ani v'ata. So now come and we'll make a deal. We'll make a covenant. V'haya le'ed beini uveinecha, and it will be a witness between us.
Oh. Well, isn't it a wonderful idea that Laban's coming up with?
Well, yeah, he says, let's make a deal. I'm not going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt me. You go your way. I'll go my way. Yeah, it's pretty good, especially since Lavan's taking the position that everything Yaakov has is stolen. And he's saying, okay, take all that stolen stuff and Gezinta hate. Sounds like a good deal from Yaakov's perspective.
Yeah, if you were Yaakov's lawyer, what would you recommend him to do?
Take the money and run.
Yeah, get away from this guy as fast as you can.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an important lesson. You know, in life you have to deal with all kinds of different people. Hashem sends all kinds of different people your way, my way, your way, and sometimes they're not exactly the people that you would want to interact with. But sometimes you don't have too much of a choice. So that's also something when you're dealing with, for example, you have to hire people, to do work and all kinds of things like this. a lot of times it's very important to, aside from the money and the qualifications that they have to, it's important that they should be honest and nice people to deal with, right? If sometimes you can have you could be very qualified and but it's very difficult to deal with. So you have to weigh the consequences sometimes. Sometimes you get a good job done, but you'll have so much aggravation from something that it's you don't even feel good about the whole situation. Right? And other times you can hire someone who's very, very nice to get along with, but he's a schlemazel. He can't do the job, so you get aggravation from that as well.
Remember, in my career, that there was a personality type that we called the prima donna.
Okay.
It was a person who was really good at something or several things. They were really, really smart, really competent, whatever, but they were impossible to get along with. We called them prima donnas because the management recognized that they really had to give in to these people because they were so valuable.
Right.
So they treated them with kid gloves.
Yeah. So, which that only reinforces their behavior. They don't get the opportunity of trying to change themselves.
Right.
That which is very unfortunate, because the Vilna Gaon and others say the whole purpose of our being in this world is to change ourselves. Hashem gives a person a gift of intelligence, of having a knack, or he's creative in some way or another, and the person can feel that he should use that as an advantage for himself, and in certain ways he should use it for an advantage for himself, but he should at the same time realize that he shouldn't overstep his bounds. And unfortunately, people never get to realize that they're overstepping their bounds, and they never get to channel their energies in the proper way, which is unfortunate, which is detrimental to them. Okay? But correct, you have to deal with a lot of different people, and sometimes you're dealing with people, and it depends what your criteria is. Here, if you look at what can we say about Yaakov in terms let's try you put yourself into Yaakov's position for a moment, and try and let's understand what Yaakov was faced with, and see what would you say his approach was to deal with it. He was by Laban for 20 years. He was there. That's a long time. 20 years is a long time to be with someone, and again, as we say, according to the mathematics, Laban was changing the agreement 5 times a year. 5 times a year he was changing the agreement, right? So that's as I said, you could keep a lawyer full-time busy with that stuff.
Well, he didn't have much choice. I mean, he wanted Rachel.
Right.
He was the one that said 7 years. I don't know how he came up with that. I would have said,
5 minutes.
give me Rachel for free.
Yeah. Right.
I'm the best thing that could happen to Rachel. Look at my yichus. I'll take good care of her.
I would say, don't forget, Yaakov Avinu, when he left Beersheba, and as Rashi explains, he really didn't leave Beersheba straight away. He spent 14 years in Yeshiva Shem Be'aver, right?
Right.
But he had been sent by his father and his mother to go to Lavan, to Padan Aram, to find a wife, right? and they gave him money. They gave him money to give to Lavan as part of the agreement for the marriage agreement. So I imagine he obviously knew how much money they gave him for this marriage agreement. So I would think that Yaakov Avinu probably, because when it was all stolen, we know that you remember I think Rashi mentions briefly, doesn't go into too much detail, but Esav, when he realized that Yaakov Avinu had escaped from Beersheba and Esav was still very angry about the brachas, he sent his son Eliphaz to kill Yaakov Avinu. Lo Aleinu, Hashavua, right? And Eliphaz caught up with Yaakov Avinu, and he was about to kill him, right? So Yaakov Avinu said, "No, don't kill me. You have no right to kill me. What do you want to kill me for?" He says, "My father Esav said he should kill you," right? So Eliphaz says, "I have a mitzvah kibbud av. I have to honor my father by killing my and Yaakov was, don't forget, Yaakov was the uncle of Eliphaz. So Yaakov Avinu said, no. Listen, an ani is nikshav kames. A person who's poor is considered to be like dead. Okay, that's maybe we'll have a minute. We'll explain that perhaps maybe. So he said, listen to this. Take all my money, leave me penniless, and that'll make me into a person who's like dead. And therefore you can fulfill your father's wishes. You'll fulfill the mitzvah kibbud avim, and you won't have shvikas damim. You won't have your hands bloodied with the blood of murder on your hands. So Eliphaz understood. So he took all the money and left Yaakov Avinu penniless. And Yaakov Avinu arrived in Padan Aram, going to marry someone, and he doesn't have a penny to offer in behalf of the woman to the father of the bride. So I would imagine that Yaakov Avinu knew how much he was given to get a wife, and he assumed that 7 years of work would be equivalent to that amount of money that he was given to make a kedushin, a marriage with the daughters of Lavan. I would think that's where he got the 7 years from. Right? Don't forget, Yaakov Avinu is the personification of truth, right? So if he said 7 years, that's because that's what it would probably be worth. 7 years worth of work. Now, since we mentioned about what's this concept of an ani is nikshav kames, I've mentioned this once or twice before. Ani is nikshav kames. I heard this pshat from Rabbi Tusky, Zechron Bracha, the son-in-law of Rav Scheinberg, Zechron Bracha, that why should it be that a person who's poor should be considered to be not considered to be alive? Because the tachlis of life, the purpose of life, is to be able to use your bechira, your free will, right? When you exercise your free will, that through that exercise of free will, you're choosing to serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're serving to serve the Yetzer Hara, as for Sholem, and a person therefore gives a person rewards based on his choices of either serving himself, serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu, he gets rewarded, or he gets as for Sholem punished for serving the Yetzer Hara to various greater or lesser degrees. So an ani, a poor person, since he doesn't have the means to exercise his choice of acquisition, of buying goods and services, properties, so therefore his free choice is limited by the lack of funds to be able to fulfill his desires or to negate his desires, if so necessary and in good keeping. So therefore, he's lacking a full range, a full spectrum of free will. So lacking that full spectrum of free will, that's considered to be dead, to be like a mace. Similarly, you see other cases where the Gemara mentions different categories of people are considered to be also kemes. For example, a person who's blind, has v'sholem, right? Since he's blind, he's very limited in where and what he can do. So that limits his free choice. And that limitation of his free choice is a limitation of his exercise of what he is able to do. And that limits him. And therefore, since he's limited in the spectrum of free choice, that's considered to be also to be nikshav kames. Another person who's nikshav, a person who's soymech on shulchan acherim. He doesn't have his own food, so he has to eat by other people, right? So since he has to eat by other people, he's completely subjugated to those people that he's eating the meal from. So when he has to subjugate himself, that's a limitation of his free will. And that limitation of a person's free will is indicative of the situation of a person in there of not being alive. Being alive is expressing your free will. Not being alive is the limitation to the greatest extent of a lack of free will. Oh, so that's why this Rav Tusky also explains Zechariah Baruch in Mishlei. We're taught by Shlomo Melech, Matanis, Soni Matanis Yechia. A person who hates gifts lives. Soni Matanis Yechia. A person who hates gifts lives. So why? For the same reason, the same explanation. That when you accept a gift from somebody, whatever the gift may be, whether it's going to be large or small, that gift makes you beholden in some way, large or smally, to the person that gave you the gift. And therefore, since you're beholden to them, your free will has now become limited in relation to that person. You can't necessarily, right, say no to him if you think he's wrong. Like, if you have a boss, right, you have a boss, and he cracks a joke, and it's really a stupid joke. It's an idiotic joke, but nevertheless you laugh. Why? Because, if you don't laugh at the boss's jokes, so he's not going to be so happy with you, and he's your employer, and he has the power to give you a raise or not give you a raise, or keep you on or not keep you on, right? So therefore, since you're beholden to the boss, right, that limits your free will and your interactions with that person, and that limitation of interactions is a limitation of free choice, and therefore that's going to be somewhat to a degree greater or lesser of Misa. So therefore, Sani Matanis Yichya, a person shuns gifts. He doesn't take gifts from people, and therefore he's a person who can live because he can express his free will, his free choice completely. In the same way, you have the same yesod when it says that shoichad, bribery, is marber ein of the pikkim, that the bribery will blind the eyes of even judges, even those people who know better, because once they've taken the bribe, they're beholden, just like taking a gift makes a person beholden, and therefore they see everything in a completely different light, and that creates a certain blindness. And as we said, the blind person is also considered to be not in this world, not alive, because again, his free will is limited. Likewise, a judge, somebody who's going to take bribes in one way or another, his free will, his ability to absolutely see the situation clearly is very now limited and biased. And since he has that bias, that makes him completely, in the case of a judge, completely invalid for judging the case, because he's too biased towards the person who benefited him. So, a couple of things that we've learned so far here, that you need to be very clear, especially if you're dealing with people, that there's a general rule, chabdehu v'chashdehu, right? You honor people, all people you should honor, right? You should honor all people, meaning superficially, you should give them the honor that people deserve, that that all people you should judge favorably. Nevertheless, you should suspect them. Why should you suspect them? Right? They're nice people, and you have no reason seemingly to suspect them. So why you should suspect them? Because everyone has a Yetzer Hara. You don't suspect them, but you suspect their Yetzer Hara can sometimes get the better of them. That's what happens. People's Yetzer Hara gets the better of people, and they do things that are wrong. And sometimes it's only between them and themselves. Sometimes it's between them and the Kadosh Baruch Hu, but sometimes it can be between them and people. And you could be one of those people. So on one hand, you're Machabed people. You give people the proper honor due to they, whoever they happen to be. Nevertheless, you have a right to be suspect. Be wary. Be careful, because if a person, everybody has the Yetzer Hara, and you don't want to makshel somebody that by you perhaps being too open or too nice about things, sometimes they could be led by the Yetzer Hara to try and take advantage of you. If they see that you're wary and you're careful, so they won't be tempted to try and take advantage of you. Because again, not that we look down upon people, not that we think poorly about people, but we know that the Yetzer Hara, everybody has a Yetzer Hara, and therefore we know, understanding that, we shouldn't in any way give their Yetzer Hara a opening that they can strict that person up. So sometimes by being strict and open about things, being formal about things, that can in fact maybe many times be the deciding factor between whether there's going to be a shalom or there's not going to be shalom. So, okay, so our time is up. So I want to wish everyone a good Erev Shabbos. And Bez Hashem, we can continue learning on Yom Rishon. Bez Hashem.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you, Roy. You too. Be well. Have a good Erev Shabbos to you, and Lou as well. Have a good Erev Shabbos there.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have a good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Thank you too. Hope to